Okay, so I've got a sheet set up here with some viewports set up roughly for 1 to 20, but I'm going to delete that sheet and go through all of that process again, and then also go a little bit more into annotation and text, which you can do on all those different pages, hopefully in the same way for the different scales that you have. Right, so I'm going to start by duplicating this sheet, and that's a useful technique in and of itself. When you right click on a tab and then go to move or copy, you need to choose where you want it to go in your list of tabs down here. So I'm going to choose move to end, so it'll go obviously to the end, and then I'm going to tick create a copy. If you don't do that, all it'll do is move the current tab somewhere. So create a copy and then OK, and now I've got a duplicate which is identical to begin with, but if I right click there, I can go to rename, and I'll call this A3 bathroom, and then I'm going to delete most of the things I need on that I had from the previous sheet, and I'll keep that title because that'll be useful. I want the titles to be the same on all the sheets, and I'll adjust this viewport just using the grips to make it a bit bigger. And then I'm going to click on the paper button on the status bar, and that'll make the viewport active. So when I zoom, it's not zooming inside the viewport because I've still got the viewport locked down next to the scale. I'm going to unlock that, and then I can zoom anywhere I like in that viewport, and I'm just going to center it roughly on the part that I want, which is the bathroom plan. Okay, so now I'm going to go and set the scale accurately again by choosing 1 to 20. And now I can pan, and you can see something interesting there's already happened. All of the text and the dimensions have disappeared. And that's because of the way I've set them up using that annotative option. The section symbol, unfortunately, is still there, and it's on my text layer. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer for 1 to 50 annotation. And so I've just put A there for annotation, and so this is for all of my text and other annotation that's only at that 1 to 50 scale. And then all of these lines, I can't quite see them all there, so I'll just pan across and get all of those lines in my section and put them onto this new layer. And I can then freeze those, or freeze that in this viewport only. So you'll see in the layers there, you've got that option. And so that's really useful. I can have it on still in the other viewports. Back in my plan, those are the same lines. On my plan sheet, I can still see them because that layer isn't frozen in that viewport, but it's frozen here. So then well, I better fix the elevation symbol there as well. But you would have seen that the text was already turned off, and that's because it's set up again for that larger scale. All right, so I'm going to copy this all to one side. So I'm just making sure I get just the lines that I want. And then I'm going to scale it. Okay, so using the scale tool, I'm going to scale just around a base point roughly in the middle there. So I'm clicking a point just near the center of the circle, doesn't need to be exactly on it. And then the scale factor is going to be 2/5. We're going from 1 to 50 to 1 to 20. So 20/50 would work as well, but 2/5 is the same thing. Right, so then you can see my text and everything else is smaller, and that's the right size now for my new sheet. I'm going to pan across those so you can see it there, and notice the text still isn't visible. Okay, so I need to do something else. In my properties, I'm going to select all of these text objects, and then right click and go to properties, And you can see then the annotated scale is still set to 1 to 50. Okay, so to change that, you just need to go to Browse, and then add a new scale. So I'll add 1 to 20, and then remove, if you don't want it anymore, remove the old scale. So you can have multiple scales, that's why you get the option. But I don't want multiple, so I'm just going to delete that one and leave 1 to 20. Now, unfortunately, it's gone and set the text height to the appropriate size for those objects, but I can always just change the height in properties here. If I can see it, where are we? Oh, yep. So the paper text height, it was different. So let's just check on the other ones. I should have checked it before, but if you look now, okay. So the paper text height, you can see here 2.5 is what we want for the numbers going around the outside. Okay, so you can see there it's gone to 1 because it was scaled. So I'll make it 2.5. And then, again, the sheet reference is just 2. Okay, so I'll do that. Okay, so looking on my sheet now, I can see that text. It's the annotative scale in properties that determines that. So it needs to have the same annotative scale set there as you do in the viewport. Alright, so I can then move these objects back, and I'm going to move them somewhere else. So you would have seen that this was getting a bit cramped before, the way it is on my plan. Now that I've got the reference here on this 1 to 20 plan, I'll probably take that reference off the main floor plan. It won't be so bad. So then I can move this one over. And just put it somewhere in that room there. We've got a lot more room, so it doesn't really matter if it's in the way of something else, so that's fine. And then, back on the sheet, there's my reference, but I don't want to see these. Also, my hatching, I'm probably going to make a decision that I can't have that symbol being hatched around. So I'll go and edit the hatch first by going to, well, I might just make that simple and delete it, and I'll recreate that. You can edit it, but it's probably easier just to remake a hatch when things like this happen. All of these lines then that are from the symbol that's set up for the other scale, I can do the same as I did with the section line. Put it onto the layer I've made for that scale. Okay, so now I just have the symbol. Then the other text, I'll go through the making of a textile again, just to make that clearer. So the easiest way to get to it is in the annotation panel, and then next to your first drop-down panel, which is for text, you have the textile button. And then you should really just need one annotative textile. So it's a matter of having, I'll just make a new one. So once you click the new button, I'll call this, let's say, headings. But I'll put anno, so I'll remember that it's annotative style. Okay, so it's got the annotative option ticked. And I'm going to set a paper text height of 5. So that's the size I want it to print. And then the font, I'll just leave it Arial. So those are the only things you need to set. I'll choose set current to make it the current style, and then close. And it's good to try both types of text, but I'm going to use multi-line text for most of this. And then you just need to make a rectangle for your text box. And then typing in the text I want, you can see that it'll give you a text editor, I suppose, a control bar for your text, where you can adjust most of those properties afterwards anyway. So that's why you really only need the one text style. Make sure it's set to annotative, and then you can set the height and the font as you go, and adjust that if you want to. So I'm done with my text. I can just close the editor now, and it'll leave it there. Put that onto my text layer. Now notice I'm not worrying about putting this onto its own layer. I don't need to put it onto my special layer for, say, 1 to 20. You might think I'd need a 1 to 20 layer now for this viewport, because otherwise you might think it would show in this floor plan, but notice that it doesn't. Text and dimensions, they're automatically managed with Annotated. And so all I need to do though is put these lines and the circle onto their own layer. They will need it. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to make one called, you probably guessed it, A1 to 20. Make sure it's black or white, same thing. Make it current layer, may as well. Okay, so these lines and the circle need to go onto that layer. I'm not in the viewport, better do that. Okay, so onto the 1 to 20 layer, and then that layer can be frozen in this viewport. Okay, so now I've got 2 lots of text and the symbol set up for the different scales. Then the dimensions are going to work the same way. So you've got here the measurements drawn for this 1 to 50 floor plan. On the bathroom plan, the whole point of having this floor plan is to have more detailed dimensions. So you can have measurements for things like the bathtub, the placement of the WC, and the vanity, and so on. Okay, so yeah, you could. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so I'm going to go and make this viewport bigger still. Let's bring this out a little bit more. And then going into paper again, to go to model, in other words, I'm just going to draw dimensions. So here I'll just draw just along that wall, just so you can see that it is the right size. Not what it's measuring, but just the actual Okay, so the idea with dimensions is the same as text, so I'll just go through the making of a dimension style, and if you follow these steps then it'll always work for you, because if you have a look at back here, so look at it on the model tab, you can see that the dimensions all show up, and so that's the small one I've just made. These are the ones for the other plan. But when you go to the scale also to the viewport on your page that's set up for a certain scale, it knows to turn the other ones off. So here, that 1 to 20 dimension that I drew, measuring that little part there, it's gone. All these other dimensions are on. On the bathroom plan, you can see all those other dimensions are off, but this one's on. Okay, so the whole point of the Annotated is to help you and manage your scales. So I'll go and, again, under that Annotation panel, just go to the Dimension Style next to, again, the second drop down there, which is for your Dimension Styles. I'm going to go through the steps for making a dimension style from scratch, going through all the steps. And at first, there's a lot of settings, so it's worth just following through these steps. I'm going to just start by choosing. I'm going to choose Scale 25 because that's one that you'll have when you start your file. Okay, so if you haven't made a dimension style yet, you'll have that. So just choose it, and then New. Okay, so call it, something like My Dim Style. And then, really important that you tick Annotated. Hit Continue, and you'll see that's already going to work, but it's set up for, well, really the way they do dimensions in some parts of America, I think, so that's not what we want. And so I'm going to start by going to primary units, change the precision there to 0, and that'll fix the numbers. That's one of the main things. Should set the decimal separator to a period as well, but hopefully you won't see any decimals. Fit, check that annotative is turned on. On your text tab, go to Browse, next to the text style standard, hit Browse, New, to make a new text style, and then call it something like dim. And you can set a simple font like Roman Simplex, which is Roman S. And the height, leave at 0. Really important that you don't touch that. And also annotated. Okay, so then you can just close it. You don't need to change anything else, apply or set current, just close. And then yes to save changes, that's fine. And from the list, then back in your dimension style tab, you can choose that new name. And you'll get your new text. Symbols and arrows, you need to choose then probably architectural tick, but you might want oblique if you don't like the heavy ticks. I don't mind the heavy ones. And then check your arrow size, 2.5 is good. And then on the lines tab, the important settings are extend beyond dim lines and extend beyond ticks. Probably can just have them both on 1, and then you'll see what they do. It's these extra little bits coming out past the tick there. Offset from origin, I'd set that to about 2 initially. It'll bring the extension line back from your object, and then with fixed length extension lines, you can measure it the other way, and I'll set that to 5, and that's going to set the length of this line coming out from the dimension line. Okay, so you can just copy those settings, and then the dimensions should work pretty well for you. So I'm going to make sure that one is current. It is. And I'm going to then just draw in a linear dimension style, linear dimension. So you can see that's working a bit better now. And then I'll just go to continue to add in some more. So here, I don't need to be too fussy. It's not all that accurate, but that'll do. So I might fine-tune those measurements, but well, one little trick I can show you is if you go back and then just quickly change the dimension style. You go to Modify, and then on the Primary Units tab, you can round off your dimensions. So I'm going to change that to 5, because there aren't many builders who build much more accurately than to the nearest 5 mil on your drawings, and that's actually a good thing. So now you can see it's going to round off all those funny looking measurements to things that look more sensible, and that's good, but you've got to still check they add up to what the total should be. And then the second viewport, so I've just gone back to paper, and I'm just going to show you then to make a new viewport. Well, first I'm going to go to my viewport layer, and then on the layout tab, rectangular, and this rectangular again, and I'm just going to choose 2 points from my viewport and zoom in and sort of make sure you know about using the cube there, and that you should make a new viewport to get this cube. So if I rotate there, that's now viewing in the right direction. Oh, that's my bath there, that's right, so I should have left that, that's good. And then the scale, again, can set the same way, and notice the text that I already had there is turned on now. Because, again, it was set up, you can see in properties, it's got the annotated scale set to 1 to 20. And just so it's clear, you don't always have to go into properties, or you shouldn't be normally going into properties to change this all the time. Normally, all you do to set the scale for your text is you choose the viewport scale when you choose the scale here, or if you're back on the model tab, you choose the scale there as well. So by choosing 1 to 20 here, I know then if I go and draw some text, I'll just go and do some. Okay, so I'm going to draw some more multi-line text in here, so for the bath maybe. Okay, so I'll put it on the right layer. So I'm just using the text layer. I'm not worrying about which scale it's for. AutoCAD's going to manage that for me because, again, I drew it with 1 to 20. So I know in properties, if I look at this text, it knows it's 1 to 20. And so then here, well, that's a different viewport. I'm just going to show you if I copy that viewport. Remember, you won't get the view cube, so don't do it that way. It's better to make a new viewport. Again, try and use a viewport layer for that. So I'll make a new one. And I'm just going to zoom roughly again to get the view centered, and then choose the scale 1 to 20, and that was at a different view. Sorry, that was my section that I drew the text on. I better move that to the right view. Okay, so this is the one we're looking at on the page. Okay, so you can see the text there. If I zoomed or was at a different scale, 1 to 50, that text will disappear. But once it knows it's 1 to 20 in the viewport, the text is going to show. So once those are hatched, they'll look a lot better, those elevations, but try and note everything you can see. So again, the in this view, WC and the bath, and you should see the window there as well. I haven't drawn that in yet. And then the basin as well, when you see that in the other elevation, should also be labelled. And I'll try and give you some sample sheets with this finished, but what you've got in the brief. Where are we? Yep, so the notes, actually, those things that John gave you in the brief there should give you a pretty good idea how to label, especially the things in the bathroom, and you can do the same for the kitchen, so that should be fine, I think. But, yep, just see how you go.